So here we have 25 unique pieces of history from the C4 to the C6 Corvette. Some of these are pretty crazy. I'm gonna stick around. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Happy Wednesday morning. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah. A couple of quick announcements. So my next big project for the Z06 is a push button start. I don't know why I took so long to get around to doing something like this. This is kind of my experimental project until my C8. I get a C8 here next year or so. So I think it'll be fun and you guys will enjoy it. I'll learn a little bit. A couple of things I'm still getting in the mail to make sure the project's gonna work just fine. I need to make sure my VATS is disabled. It might already be disabled from the previous owner, I'm not sure. I need to double check, and I'm still waiting on the kit itself. But as soon as I get that in, I'll do a complete unboxing, install, review, and my thoughts if it's even worth your time. So look out for that on the channel here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, just when I think I know everything there is to know about Corvettes in general, I do some research online, I look at some documentaries, I scour forums, I find new unique things, and sure enough, I've come up with 25 things that even surprised me. Some didn't surprise me, but are very cool, and I think you guys will find them very fascinating. Yeah, so I'll start with the C4, work my way up to newer. I omitted the C7 because there's nothing too interesting about the build, etc. And it's still kind of new. Everyone kind of knows everything there's to know about the C7. Of course, C8's brand new. I might do C1 and C3 later on. I don't know. But yeah, I'll start with 25 and work my way down to 1. And they're pretty neat, so here we go. The 1984 Corvette had the, at the time, not just Corvette production car ever, the steepest rake angle of any windshield at 64 degrees. So that's pretty cool. 24. Now this one blew my mind. With the CB radios at the time dwindling in sales overall, the 1985 was the last year Corvette you could get it optioned with a CB radio. I didn't even know CB radios were an option in Corvettes, but they were. In 1985, I believe 16 Corvettes were equipped with a CB radio. Pretty damn cool. 23. All 1986 Corvette convertibles sold were a replica of the pace car at the time. And when you bought it from the dealer, you were given the decal. So you had the choice to make it a pace car if you wanted to. So that's pretty cool. So pace cars were sold in 86 in the convertibles. Some with the decals running around and some were never put on. That's kind of neat. Number 22. In 1986, Corvette sent 20 Corvettes to Lotus in Europe to have the motors turned into what we know now as the LT5 dual overhead cam. That's pretty cool. In the 01. 21. In 1987, and only 1987, Chevy gave the option to order a Corvette from the factory with no engine. That blew my mind. It kind of made sense because then people were putting all kinds of different variants of their small block, and I guess they were like, hey, let's just try it, see what happens. I don't know how many were sold, I might look into that. That's pretty neat. In 1987, the largest number of colors available for any Corvette at the time was 1987, and you could get one of 16 different color options. That's quite a bit for the 80s, because they were a little more stingy on color options back then. That's pretty cool. Number 19, July 2nd, 1992, marked the day when the 1 millionth Corvette rolled off the assembly line. And if you know the story later on, about 20 years or so, it fell in a hole in the Corvette museum, but they restored it. So what a that's so crazy to think of, the millionth Corvette, right? And they put it on this platter, like, really careful with it. It sits in the museum and it falls in a sinkhole. It's nuts. So that's another story from another time, but yeah, pretty crazy. Number 18, for 1996 and only 1996, the LT1 engine required an automatic transmission. However, the 6-speed was mandatory in the LT4, which produced 330 horsepower. Number 17, the 1996 Admiral Blue Grand Sport, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, has that very unique white stripe down the middle. What you don't know is the hash marks on the fenders, even though it looks like it's two separate red hash marks, it's one decal, just to make sure the lines were perfectly straight. It was just the whole thing, even though it was blue incorporated on the sticker, was also just a sticker on the blue paint that matched the paint. Kind of weird. Number 16, the C5 Corvette. For the first time ever, Corvette production, the first 200 Corvettes were not white, they were red. I thought that was kind of neat. Number 15. C5 Corvette had a lot of new innovations too I thought were very, very fascinating. For the first time, it used a plastic composite intake manifold, which is kind of unheard of for the time, you know, going from the 80s to the 90s. And more interestingly enough, I didn't know this, the backlight on the gauge cluster is actually a black light. And someone actually mentioned this in one of my comments a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I don't know. And sure enough, yeah, it's a black light. That's why it looks so interesting at night. So that's kind of neat. Number 14, as we all know, the C5 introduced the Transaxle, which pretty much means they took the Transaxle from behind the engine up front, moved it to the back to mount with the differential for better weight distribution. However, the Corvette team had planned on doing this since 1968. They were just waiting for the right time to do it. So they weren't like in like early 90s, like, hey, we should try this. They had this coming for a long time, and they were just kind of waiting for technology to catch up. That's kind of cool. Number 13, the C5 Corvette in 1997 was the first Corvette to have windshield wipers that went the same direction. Now think about it, my C4s always did this number. I hated it. Yeah, C5 introduced the parallel wiping wipers. Number 12, it took roughly 70 hours to build a C4 Corvette and only 55 to build a C5 Corvette when they came out, through production that is. And if I'm not mistaken, C5 used like only half the amount of parts that a C4 did. I'm not sure on that, off the top of my head, but something like that. Number 11, for the first time in history, the C5 Corvette had the Corvette available as either a coupe, removable target top, a convertible, or a hardtop, FRC. Number 10, this is one I had no idea, I never thought about, made the connection, but to commemorate Y2K, Corvette introduced Millennium Yellow. And how I never thought of that, I probably sound so stupid right now, because I love Millennium Yellow, and yeah, it was just to mark the year 2000. Number 9, Corvette Z06 was the first mass-produced production car ever to utilize a titanium exhaust. I think you saved something like 15 pounds. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's something like that, but that's kind of cool for a production car. Number 8, in 2003 was the first time the Corvette used the magnetic ride control, which you're not familiar, pretty much uses electrical pulses inside of the strut, if you will, and by turning the dial, you change the way the fluid inside moves, or uses liquid magnets, if you will, and it softens or hardens the strut. That's by putting some kind of electrical signal through it. It's a lot more involved than that. I probably sound really stupid to kind of like electrical or mechanical engineers. But yeah, in any case, in 2003, that was the first time that technology was used, and you'll know if you have it, because on your little center console, you have a little dial. Pretty neat. Number 7, in 2006, for the first time, Corvette offered paddle shifting. Pretty slow and not the greatest technology, but they were trying to catch up to its competitors. It wasn't until now, 2020, I guess last year, that they actually got really good with the paddles and the DCT, as you're all familiar. But it was a decent attempt, if you will. I was never a fan of the way they looked. But yeah, 2006 is when those came out. Number 6, C6 Corvette, 2005, was the end of an era. Corvette finally axed the pop-up headlights, or fixed static headlight. To this day is a huge, huge debate in the Corvette world. You either hate it, you love it. I don't mind either way. The pop-ups are pretty cool, especially at night. It's pretty neat, but the static ones are fine too. Whatever. The 2009 Corvette, since the inception of the Corvette, after the first year, after 63 and 64. But anyways, 2009 had the lowest production numbers of any Corvette given a full year of production. Don't count 97 because they started very late, but a full production year, they had a very, very small amount of Corvettes. So 2009 Corvettes are kind of rare in that sense. They made just over 14,000 units. On average, they make just over 30,000. Number 4, 2009 ZR1 was the first time a Corvette ever got over 200 miles an hour. And that's pretty damn cool. Even now, the ZR1 2 years ago only hit 205, so that's pretty cool. 2009 ZR1, even though the quickest Corvette at the time, had substantially more power than the Z06, had a lower displacement, cubic inch-wise, 376 versus 427. And 427 just sounds a lot cooler. Number 2, 2012 is very unique because they did not offer a black Corvette in 2012. There was a special carbon flash metallic that was favored over black in 2012. I don't know why, because 13 was the 60th anniversary. So I don't know. Someone help me on that one. And number one, 2013, offered a Z06. They won't call it a Z06, but they call it the 427 Special. It's pretty much a convertible Z06. I think they only come in white with a silver stripe. Not a huge fan of convertibles, but pretty cool. You can get a 427 C6 in convertible. Yeah, kind of neat. Well, there you go, guys. There's 25 I think very fascinating things about the Corvette C4 to C6. If you guys thoroughly enjoy this, I might do a C1 to C3. I don't know. Well, that's all I have for today, boys and girls, and I'll catch you guys later on this week. I might start doing a segment every week, Corvette news, because things are happening so quickly in Corvette and GM world, where I just want to do a quick 10-minute segment a week where I just talk about what's going on in Corvette, how sales are doing, because sales are so weird with Corvette right now. All models, they're fluctuating so damn much between inflation, what's going on in the world. It's just a weird, strange market for Corvette. So yeah, I might start doing a weekly Corvette news segment, and then I'll do like a trivia segment. I like doing these trivia segments, they're pretty fun, and then do a DIY segment. So I'm trying to shoot for more organized 3 videos a week, one being news, one being trivia, and one being a fun, learn something, put something in with me, if you will. So, with that being said, I'll catch you guys next time. Have a fantastic Wednesday. Mark out.